All right, how's it going, everyone? So there is a lot of hype around ChatGPT, and I wanted to make a video on it to join the bandwagon, so you can thank me later. So what I did in a previous video a couple days ago was I built a little application that had some checkboxes, and I don't have the code anymore, but it basically looks like this, where you have some checkboxes and some rows, and you can click read, write, or delete. And the only time delete can be enabled, I believe, is if you have read and write clicked. And if you were to click on delete, it'll enable read and write. And if you were to uncheck write, it will turn off delete. And it took me about 23 minutes to explain and walk through this code and write it up. And I had to do some refactoring along the way to make it work. But what I wanted to try to do is like use ChatGPT or GPT to do the exact same thing and see how successful it can make the exact same logic. And again, I'm just like trying to play around with this. So what I need to do, I logged into Chat OpenAI, and I think the bottom might be cut off. So let me just go ahead and load the DevTools real quick. I don't really know too much about this. I just kind of started playing with it. But basically, you can ask it a question and it gives you a response, right? So in our case, we need to build out that functionality. So the more you understand the business requirements and the business logic, the better I believe the AI can generate what you want. So in our case, we want to basically create a React JSX page, which has checkboxes, I guess. I could say has 4 rows of checkboxes. Actually, let me rephrase this. Create a React JSX page, which displays 4 rows, and in each row contains 3 checkboxes representing read, write, and delete permissions of a system. I don't really know. I'm just trying to write some stuff, some fluff text. And then now I want to kind of explain the business requirements. So when a user clicks on the delete checkbox, it should automatically check the read and write checkboxes in that row. Each row should be isolated in regards to the logic. And then I'm also going to say when a user unchecks either read or write, make sure delete is unchecked automatically. I can't type. Automatically. Okay, now finally I wanted to say the page should have a button which allows the user to click submit, which will send the checkbox state to an API. Let's just try this out and see what happens, okay? Hopefully it's going to be pretty cool. Now, I did play around with it a little bit, and you do have to spend a lot of time like telling it to rewrite, telling it to redo some things. But let's see what it generates, and let's see if it can solve the problem kind of the same way that we solved it in the video. So it looks like it's creating a permissions page that has some state that has an array of 4 things. So far, it seems pretty good to me. It has a handle change button that when you click on it, I guess you pass the index of the row and the name of the checkbox you want to check. This is a factory function, so I'll have to figure out what's going on here. But basically, it's going to update the permissions, and it's going to toggle the checkbox you selected, either true or false, depending on the DOM element's target.checked. If name is equal to delete, it's going to basically set read and write to the same state as the delete, which seems good. New permission delete is equal to false. So if you don't select delete, it's going to basically uncheck delete, and then it updates the permissions on the page. Handle submit's not doing anything. I don't know why they left a comment here. And let's read through the code real quick. So we got some permissions, input, checkbox, read, write. So let's just copy this code and see what happens. It seems okay, but you won't know it's good until you actually run it. So this is called permissions page. So let me make a new page called permissions page.jsx. I think I'm using TypeScript, but I'm just going to go ahead and use JSX for this example. And then I'm going to go ahead and just render out permissions page, like so. So there is some like, coding you have to do when you use these AI things. And I don't know why it's not auto importing this. Let's go back and see what's going on here. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Like, why cannot not find that? This is the stupid stuff you run into when you're coding. That should be super basic. I mean permissions? No, I don't mean permissions. It's called permissions page. It's from a file called permissions page. Why is this so hard to do? I'm gonna change this from export default to export const. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just start fresh. All right, I went ahead and just renamed this to TypeScript just because, like, for some reason, I guess the Vite setup cannot import this JSX. You know what? I'm just going to tell GPT to like use TypeScript because I don't know why this isn't working. But anyway, we got the code here. There are some errors in it, and there's some functionality that's not even built out yet. But let's just go ahead and like go to the app and see what we get. So we got read, write, and delete. If I select on these, it actually does exactly what we want. That's kind of scary, but I mean, that's pretty awesome too. Like the AI is smart enough to read my prompt, and the first time it kind of gets it correct. Now, the second thing I want to do is like, when you do submit, I'm going to go ahead and just select some of these like this and click submit. And it doesn't do anything, but let's actually verify the code a little bit. If I were to print out like permissions here, go ahead and say like console log permissions. Let's verify, like, do we get this data? And we get an array that has all of the values correctly set up and updated based on how you have them checked. So that's pretty cool. That's my initial investigation of ChatGPT. But I think it's pretty crazy. The first prompt I gave it, it actually gave me the fully working code that solved the problem exactly how I needed it to be solved. Now, I could potentially have it rewrite and have it like actually fill out the handle submit. Like, so let's just go here and say like finish out the handle submit function. And what it's going to do is going to look at the previous prompts, and it's going to like auto generate the thing again. In this case, is actually just going to generate the handle submit function for us. So if you don't know how to like submit stuff to a backend, you can actually use Chat GPT, I keep forgetting the acronym, to implement this stuff out, which is actually pretty cool. Now, so I can copy this stuff out, and if I want to like get an understanding of what's going on here, it kind of explains it all to you. I already know what happens here, but copy that in. And then this is going to assume you have an API called /permissions that you can do a post request to. So it's pretty cool. Now you can continue iterating upon this code. Like I could say add some error handling if you don't have anything checked. Like, let's just try it out. So rewrite the page so that when the user submits, actually, let me say this, rewrite the page to have error handling to not allow the user to click the submit button unless they have at least checked one field in each row. Let's see what it does when I give it some additional business logic to kind of implement. And it takes a while to kind of settle this stuff up, so let's just give it a second. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with this. Now, sometimes it does get stuck and you have to like tell it to continue, and it like redoes the prompt. But I've used GitHub Copilot, and I like Copilot a lot because it kind of like fills in the blanks for you as you're trying to write. This tool also seems pretty powerful. Just for building out smaller components or building out smaller pieces of functionality, like let's say you needed a function that does some complicated logic, you could start by using this AI to basically generate it for you, and then you can read over it and iterate upon it. Now, at the end of the day, like this isn't going to replace a developer, at least not yet, because I still have to read through this code and make sure it works, right? Sometimes it doesn't actually fill out the places that you need it to fill out. Sometimes it generates bad code. Sometimes it writes suboptimal code. Sometimes it writes code that's not really readable by a human. So let's just try copying this code and see if it actually changed anything. So it added some validate form, and it loops through every permission, and it says if either read, write, or delete is not checked, then it pushes an error. And then I believe it'll set the errors here. So let's copy the code. I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here, save it, and then I'm going to go ahead and check out this and click submit. And now we have some functionality where it actually like gives us some errors when you don't fill out the right things. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say like, rewrite the code to display red alert banners that show the errors and also highlight the row in red that was not filled in. Generate the CSS for these pages and components. Let's see what happens if you tell it to do a little bit more. One thing I don't like about it is it takes so long to generate code. It's like, dude, I don't know if this is like a forced delay they add to like the page to make it seem like it's typing to you. But personally, I would rather just print me the code. Maybe it's generating code on the fly and it actually takes this long for the AI to generate this stuff. But I mean, obviously this is faster than a human can write it. I don't know any developer who can code an entire component like this as fast as this AI can. So that's kind of impressive, to be honest. Okay, and yeah, so it is just grabbing some stuff from Bootstrap, but let's just go ahead and copy all this stuff. Permissions pages CSS. I'm gonna go ahead and paste that in. I'm gonna make a file called permissionspage.css, and then I'm gonna say continue generating the CSS file for me. And let's see if it can actually generate the CSS file. All right, hopefully this does what we want. Copy this code, paste it in here, and let's go back to our app and provide. I think it's because I had the changes to export cons. I don't actually, let's just go back to this. I'm gonna go ahead and just change that a little bit. There, so now we actually have some styles. Okay. So overall, I mean, it's pretty cool. That's just one little example that scratches the surface of this tool. But I would definitely recommend signing up and like just playing around with it and see like how powerful is this. I'm gonna make a new chat because I'm kind of done with this checkbox stuff. I mean, I'm impressed. It actually there's one more thing I want to show. So in my video, I actually solved the solution not using an array. I used, watch an ad real quick. I need to sign up for YouTube Premium. But if you look at the code, ultimately I ended up finding a solution that used a map like this. All right, so the state is a map of T1, T2, and then inside of those we have nested objects. It's a little bit different solution, but let's see if I were to go to ChatGPT and say rewrite the component, the page component, to use a map instead of an array for keeping track of the permissions state. Go ahead and click enter. Actually, I don't know if there's a way to stop it from doing all the CSS stuff. It should be done in a second though. I guess I'm curious, will it generate the exact same solution that I did? It's using an actual JavaScript map, which I guess works fine. It's I'd rather use an object personally, not a map. But I think it's going to basically generate the perfect code. So let's just go ahead and stop this. I mean, I'm impressed. I think you guys should be impressed too that it basically solved the same problem that I did here in a lot less time. And it probably kind of gave a different solution and different approach to the solution, which is pretty cool. And added validation. I even do validation in my video. So that's pretty cool. But like, obviously, I think another powerful thing you can use for this AI is like just doing self-discovery and learning. One thing I like to do when I'm learning something new is just like experiment and go down these different paths of like learning stuff. So for example, I've never used Go before. I mean, maybe once for like an hour, but let's say I just want to like learn a little bit about Go and how the Go syntax works, right? I could say like, how do you write a for loop in Go? Okay, I don't have to go to any docs. I don't have to go anywhere. I just ask a question and it literally tells me how I can write a for loop using Go. And it actually gives me a bunch of different examples. The most basic type with a single condition. Okay, so this is a I don't know what the syntax is, right? So I don't know what colon equals is. So what I'm going to do is when this thing is done, I'm going to ask it. I'm going to say, hey, chat GPT, like, what does the colon equal sign mean in Go? What does, oh, hello. What does the colon equal mean in Go? Go language. I guess it's called Golang. Okay, so like as you're reading through this code, you might have no idea like what any of this stuff does. I'm guessing this is an assignment operator. In Go, the colon equal operator is used to declare and initialize a new variable at the same time. It's a shorthand form of var keyword and the equal operator. Okay. So I guess if you don't do this, you'd have to say var whatever, declare and initialize a new variable with the operator can only be used inside a function body, cannot be used at a package level. So there's stuff that I don't really understand about this, like syntax and stuff. But the point is, you can kind of go down this path of just like trying things out and learning like the syntax of a language. If watching a full-on YouTube tutorial course is too much for you, or reading through the documentation of Go is too much for you, you actually have this like AI that can kind of hold your hand and explain things to you, which I think is super powerful. I mean, the code generation thing is like pretty powerful as well, as we just saw, because I basically solved the exact same problem I did in like 5 minutes, first try, which is kind of sad. I think we might be out of a job soon. But yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, there's more stuff I want to play around with, but my thoughts are I'm kind of impressed with this. I think it's a great tool that maybe a beginner or an entry-level programmer can use to help generate code and try to understand solutions to problems, especially if you're like working on a team by yourself and you don't have that many people you can collaborate with and talk to. Having this AI that can kind of walk you through and give you examples, I think is really beneficial. But in terms of job security, I don't think we're getting close there yet to like have this stuff replace us. These things might replace some lower level tasks that we have to do as programmers. Like let's say you're given a business requirement where you need to write a function that groups all of the people in an array by their last name or something, like the first character of their last name. So write me a JavaScript function which takes in an array of people's names and groups their names based on the first letter of the last name. Make sure the groups are sorted in ascending order. So like for lower hanging fruit tasks like this, that sometimes you'll go to Stack Overflow or you got to solve these problems yourself, you could just ask the AI to do stuff for this. And you'll see how powerful this is, right? It takes in a list of names, and then it creates a groups object. And then it loops through the names, and then it splits the names by first name and last name. It looks at the first character of the last name, and then it'll set up the group if it doesn't have that group already, pushes the name into the group based on that first letter. Then it sorts it, then it returns it. And here's an example where it basically outputs J, and it has John Smith, Jane Doe. It has B for Bob Johnson, A, Alice Williams. So it's actually grouping it by the first letter of the first name, which is not exactly... Is this exactly what we want? Maybe the example is bad, because it should have been grouping it by like John Smith. Like it should have S. So I'm going to take this code real quick and let's just play around with it. And honestly, this permissions page stuff, we can just get rid of it. I'm going to copy this whole function and I'm going to call it. So group names of, we'll say John Smith, Alex Jones, Bob Saget. So if I were to run this in my editor, refresh the page, I'm not printing things, so obviously it's not going to do anything. Let's just print this out real quick. And we get J and we get S. And S is Smith and Bob Saget. So I think it does work. I think the example that it gives us is actually incorrect, because why would it have B as a group when I told it the group by last name? You know what I mean? Like this J for Bob Johnson should have been here. So there's things that, it can't be perfect. The AI can't give you a perfect example, and it takes someone who has experience and expertise in reading code to make sure that when I read through this, like nothing seems uh, bad about it. Now, the great thing is if you use this AI to generate smaller functions, you could probably have it generate tests for those functions as well. Um, and if you just generate small enough code that you can kind of read yourself and verify, like I think this is super beneficial. But definitely check it out. Try it yourself. Try, seeing how powerful it can be to generate us functions or components or entire applications. I don't know how far you can take it. I haven't really played with it too much, but I'm assuming you could tell it to build you a full-on like Connect 4 application or something, or a full-on full stack application. You just have to be very, very patient, and you have to probably have it keep on regenerating stuff over and over again and having it pause and continue. And at that point, like I rather kind of just have it code the smaller chunks and copy and paste those into my code base. And then myself, I can kind of connect all the dots together in my code. Anyway, hope you guys liked this little overview. Hope you guys got good exposure to this tool and my thoughts on it. And I'm pretty impressed. I might actually play around with this a little bit more because it seems like everyone else is hyping it up, and it's actually pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty cool. So if you enjoyed watching, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell icon, and like always, I have a Discord channel. If you want to connect with me or anyone else who's learning how to code, feel free to join my Discord and ask questions there, and we should hopefully help you out if you're stuck on anything. Anyway, have a good day and happy coding.